Your goal should be to be easeful. You disturb your ease by doing wrong things, and you call yourself diseased. To be peaceful, if a person lives based on this I, me, mine, he can never be peaceful. And then to be useful. Nothing will disturb you if your life is based on selflessness. And you can always be peaceful. And when you are peaceful, you are a happy person. I am fortunate, in a way, to be born in a family of pious parents. They instilled the faith in God in my heart. And somehow from then on, I never worried about anything. Everything just fell into proper places. I got my hands into everything. Automobile engineering, electronic engineering, cinematography, temple management. Our home was a place for almost all the sages and saints who walked that way. So naturally, I sat at their feet, learned a lot. Ultimately, I heard of another great saint in the Himalayas, Swami Satchidananda, and that was more or less the culmination of my search. It all naturally happened. Another filmmaker from America came and stayed in a hotel, and he was casually speaking to the owner of the hotel. Is there anybody who can teach me a little yoga? And that's how he came to know me. And we started talking. After 3-4 weeks, without even asking me, he sent me a ticket. The British Airlines called me and said, there is a ticket waiting. When are you going?
And I knew that America, everybody was experimenting and everybody was trying to find another way of expanding the mind. The yogic type of thinking about love and peace, it was in the air. It was sort of a fashion. But for it to really become part of your lifestyle, not just an idea, was very, very big. And I said to him, I said, Swami, America needs you. And I remember he kind of laughed and he slapped his knee and he said, why, America needs me? And he said, well, if America needs me, maybe I'll come.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Child of God, he was walking along the road, and I asked him, tell me, where are you going? Yes, he told me.
America is helping everybody in the material field, but the time has come for America to help the whole world with spirituality also.
We are good hero carbon, and we've got to get ourselves back to the car.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
While some young people demonstrate for peace and others seek it in the artificial solace of drugs, here in New York, Swami Satchidananda teaches another way to peace. And on Friday evenings, he helps both young and old in the age-old battle to control the mind, which is the power of yoga.
It is impossible to reform outside without having that reformation within ourselves.
The flower power and things like that are the outcome of a sort of frustration, because they didn't get anything from the so-called civilized life. Everything was superficial, so they wanted something more deeper.
I started making phone calls. You know, I was in Paris, I brought this great Swami here, I want you to come over tomorrow. And I made about 30, 40 phone calls. And everybody showed up the next day.
The first group of people who were around me, they just were lying down on the floor, showing their feet right over my face and blowing cigarette and say, "Swami, could you tell us something about yoga?" Oh boy, yes, certainly there was a little cultural difference. I could say a mild shock, because I didn't expect that. True, I fitted their image because I have a long beard, because they read about a guru coming from the Himalayas. And so that gave them a little comfort.
I mean, being in a rock band at the time was to be exposed to almost every kind of like vice known, to man, Prior to the Beatles, there was really not a lot of knowledge, about Eastern, especially from the yogic source and from the Hindu sources. It's so radical to what we kind of brought up with. I mean, I was brought up in the Roman Catholic persuasion, but it was like, what? What do you mean you don't eat any meat? What do you mean you don't eat any fish? Are you okay? I had been given a book by a friend of mine called Autobiography of a Yogi. And toward the end of the book it said, if you want a teacher, ask and he shall come. I would say within 2 weeks we were asked to do a television program. And I walked in and there he was. So we're sitting talking, and I told him exactly what I'm telling you, that I was so disillusioned. I used to say to Swami, what about the world? And we got trouble in Palestine, and he used to go, oh my God. He says, I gave you a broom, I told you to clean your closet, and you want to clean the whole house? Finish your closet, and then come back and talk to me,
I'd say we were younger, we were cruder, and perhaps somewhat caught up in just the whole idea of studying yoga and practicing yoga. But we knew there was something there. So we went from maybe romantically loving the idea of a guru and yoga practice to really experiencing something that shifted our whole way of understanding life, our whole way of being in the world.
तस्मिन् सति श्वास प्रश्वास That class, which is taught as part of integral yoga, has very profound physiologic benefits in its design. Once you learn them, even if you don't practice regularly, you can still rely on them in times of need. So it starts with chanting, which immediately gets you out of that left brain sort of stuck thinking. And then we do the eye exercises. The eye is the only part of the brain that you can see on the surface of the body. And those pathways are there, so if you relax your eyes, it has a soothing effect on the brain itself.
Rub your palms, feel the heat, and then cup your eyes with the palms. Feel the warmth of the palm, and then slowly bring the palm down until the fingertip touches the eyeballs, and then slowly massage the eyeballs outward. 1, 2, 3, 4, a little faster.
Then after the eye exercises in the yoga class, there's the sun salutation, which acts on all parts of the body. So that first you get all parts of the body sort of warmed up and loosened up, and sun salutation is very powerful for doing that.
10, 11, and 12. Terrific.
Then we do the backward bends first in integral yoga. They're a little harder to do, so we do them first.
Elbows up. Good, good, that's good. Little more up, little more. Not to strain much. Now raise the arms up again.
And then we relax into the forward bends afterwards.
Exhale and slowly bend forward. Bend at the hip. Try to touch the toe. If you can't, hold the leg wherever you can.
After we've sort of shaken and loosened everything up, turn the body upside down in shoulder stand to drain the lymph.
It'll look nice if it is very straight and vertical.
And then we correct the neck by doing the fish, and that allows the lungs to expand more fully.
Stretching of the throat. Good. Okay, see, that's where you should feel. Lift the left leg, left knee up.
And finally, to turn the body from side to side, to give a gentle massage to the kidneys to get rid of any waste products that we might have generated by all this moving around in the yoga class.
That's good. Teeth, the head, wonderful. Now, give a push here. Exhale and bend forward.
So we end the yoga class with yogic seal, where you cross your legs and bend over them, which stretches the parasympathetics at the base of the spine.
If you can, bring the forehead onto the floor.
Gets us prepared for the deep relaxation.
As there is no tension in the body, there is no need for a heavy breathing. So the breath is very shallow.
Then pranayama.
Simply observe the breath.
And finally, meditation, which is the most direct path to stress management. So to consciously choose to remain peaceful in the midst of our day, that meditation has a great power to do that.
Now you see, you were the witness of your own body, your own breath, and your mind. If that is so, who was the one who was observing all these things? That means you are not the body, not even the vital breath, not even the mind. You seem to be a witness. That is the essential quality of the soul, the pure soul. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om.
Yoga, in a way, predates religion. Contemplation within the true self was something that has existed for thousands and thousands of years. There's evidence that there were meditating yogis back easily 5,000, 6,000 years ago. And now, in America, despite it getting kind of lost in the asana craze, yogis are beginning to really look for that place that Swami Satchidananda symbolized.
Now looking back, it's interesting how things have changed. The number of yoga practitioners, the number of yoga teachers, not just in America but in the world, has grown exponentially in that intervening time. I think, you know, for myself as a yoga teacher, I take the responsibility not lightly that it is my obligation to continue to study, to develop my understanding of these concepts, and also to develop better, more effective ways of teaching it to people.
Yoga holds the promise to help us to learn how to live harmoniously with the planet, with the earth, with all other beings, human beings, animal beings, plant beings, water beings, with Mother Nature herself.
Watch the animals, watch the plants. There's a sort of ecological connection. They all have their usefulness in this planet. Everything, animals, plants, they all enjoy nature's gift as it is. They don't convert one into another. They don't complicate their lives. Only we human beings that we have a lot of complications in our lives.
He wasn't trying to say there is one right way. He was saying his essential thing is the truth is one. The paths to get there are many. Just start walking.
There he is. That lets you see how this is just... This is the stupidest idea. Hippa, hippa. Whoa, all right.
Got that, bro. Good. How are you? How are you? How are you? Krishna the tiger, we're gonna let him run, take him out and let him chase the lure. Krishna is about a 3-year-old, 500-pound big male tiger. A good boy. The relationship that we have with our tigers is something that comes from thousands of hours of interacting with them and creating a bridge of understanding.
Consciousness in animals becomes a very touchy subject as to what really is conscious about them. What's the difference? And to me, the biggest difference is they are here now. They're living at that moment in such a multifaceted awareness level that we are not living here now. We are living in this process of what our mother did with cookies with us when we were 9 years old and how it changed our soul. And I got more, he got less. We don't have the things we want later. Our attention is incredibly diversified into our past and into our hopes, wants, dreams of the future. The practice of yoga and the application of yoga is that we take our mind out of that past and try and be here now like the tiger is all the time.
I weigh probably 110 pounds, and there's no way a 110-pound girl is going to walk next to a 500-pound cat without having the disciplines that yoga brings into life.
That relationship with the big cats requires this clarity of mind and a focus that we've found that the practices of integral yoga are able to build within people, and they're able to take that next step. It certainly isn't for everyone. It's a very fine line of someone who wants to put out that edge and that effort, but integral yoga is what has given us the tools to transform people into
tiger caretakers who are really going to be one-on-one with these amazing big cats.
Sattva-purushayoh shuddhi-samye kaivalyam iti Shri Patanjala-yoga-darshane vibhuti-pado nama tritiyah padaha.
The literal meaning of yoga is to unite. The root is yuj, or to yoke, to put together. But in a broader sense, maintaining the equanimity is yoga. Tranquility, serenity. The Gita says, samatvam yoga uchyate. Balance is yoga.
The concept of integral yoga was to bring the teachings of yoga into all aspects of our lives by showing us how yoga could be a part of the way we would think intellectually, be a part of the way that we would act in the world. There are centers spread all over the globe, and it's amazing to think that these centers happened because Gurdjieff visited all these places, because he spent time there and interacted with people.
This thinking that you're going to pull yourself away from society and grow spiritually, I think is very deep seated in spiritual traditions. He said that's not really a good idea, at least for most people. He says to work on your ego, you need to learn to be of service to others. Be a part of the world. You'll see, you'll learn about your limitations more, you'll learn about yourself more, you'll purify yourself more.
Yoga teaches you to face the problem, analyze it, solve it, not to run away. In fact, what good of your yoga if it could be practiced only in the Himalayan cave? You are no good for anything or anybody, and not everybody can do it. So, if you are a yogi, stay in the midst of the din and bustle of the town, of the city, of the life, and still maintain your equanimity.
When I was younger, I was definitely depressed, and a lot of it was searching for meaning. I had no reason to be here. I couldn't find a point. You know, I was in this world that I didn't quite understand, and I needed to show that I was not necessarily of the same make. So I dressed up and said, this is what's coming out, guys. You know, it's not the same as what's happening around me, but I really identify with it. Having grown up in Yogaville and having a lot of different sources to draw from, I live a rather mixed life. People already had the perception of me being different. And those people that stepped up to me and said, wow, why do you do this? It provided a huge outlet for all of these things that I was brought up on. You know, yes, I'm from Bella Morte, yes, I'm an ex-member now, still involved in the project, but you know, my focus now is yoga. And ironically, the week I left, all of these kids who I'd known on the road came out of the woodwork and said, tell me about yoga. I was like, well, I guess I'm back on the right path. You know, I guess I'm back on the right road, you know.
In New York City when I was in my 20s. I went to nightclubs, I drank, I did all that kind of stuff, looking, saying, is it here, is it there, where is it? You know, is it still inside of me? If I'm standing in a nightclub in the middle of New York City, you know, at a rave, is it still inside of me? Am I still enlightened at this moment when I'm here? Or am I only enlightened when I'm at an ashram? Where is it? And basically you stand there and you go, yeah, you get it. It's still here.
It's still here. I have a lot that's going on in my life with raising the children, and I work, and so I have a lot of worldly pursuits going on, but every moment of my day, I'm aware of that first. Gurudev was always saying, you are that know that now. Don't know it in the future, don't know it if you've meditated for 20 years, know it right this minute.
He took the most profound, the most sublime teachings, and he made them very simple and clear.
Material becomes spiritualized. We need cars to move around. Car is a material thing. But without a car, without a plane, the Swami cannot go and give talks. So use the material for a spiritual purpose, then it is spiritualized material.
And not only did he make them accessible, somehow he had the gift to give us the confidence that we could practice them and derive the benefits.
We are here to serve you all, anytime. Until then, just keep me informed how you are doing, and don't hesitate to call me anytime.
I've seen him through the last over 20-some years of all the ups and downs around us and in the world. Never a moment he lost his peace at all. How he lived, how he spoke, what he did was integral yoga.
Something galvanized around him.
Please be seated. Please.
And he supported that. He certainly was never into like a Starbucks type rollout, you know, where we create so many centers per month. He wasn't into that at all. But I think he did see the benefit of us coming together, working with each other on this, pulverizing each other's ego, supporting each other, the whole gambit. But there was something about being together in this that he really felt would make a difference.
You know, he has said many things, but the most important, he talked about the children. He said, go to the children, bring them right, so that, you know, the future world will be good.
For Swamiji, because this is so spiritual, it was an expression of one's divinity. Nataraja is a king of dances, and that's a symbolic figure for Bharatanatyam. It was a way of expressing that divinity. And not only do you take yourself to a different plateau, but you help others to go there. Especially when I had to go out and teach dance. Sometimes I was in a crossroad, I said, Swamiji, this is such a traditional art form. How do I go and present this to children who have no idea, who haven't even seen an Indian dancer? Present it the way they can understand. That was his teaching to me.
Having taught hundreds of yoga classes now to school kids of all ages and to their teachers, we've seen how stressed out our schools are. And we've also seen that yoga can provide a foundation for learning that has not been tried before. And that foundation is to give students and teachers a comfortable body, a peaceful, focused mind, and presence in the moment.
I am definitely much more selfless than I had been. I also have become much more patient with my students and with everyone. I don't take things as seriously anymore, like things that I guess in the grand scheme of things don't really matter. I have quit smoking, and that was due to this place for sure. Food, that's my vice. It takes a lot more than beans and green to fill me. I'm Italian, I grew up on a lot of different heavy foods, and I fall off the wagon from time to time, but I am eating more tofu, and that was really unthinkable to me for a long time. One thing that Swami Satchidananda said was, don't stop doing what you're doing. When you start doing yoga regularly, you're going to naturally stop the desires for those things.
तपस्वाध्यायेश्वर प्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः समाधि भावनार्थ क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
Yoga allowed me to get my body focused on something, so my mind could be freed to focus on emptiness. And so although the asanas of yoga are important, it was the deep breathing and meditative aspects of yoga that provided the deepest lessons. So these tools, which at a very basic level for a healthy human have benefit, provide an incremental benefit to folks who have illness. And in particular, if you can combine yoga with meditation, you begin to see medicinal benefits in a whole slew of different areas, including management of arrhythmias, asthmatic conditions, autoimmune problems, places where our body has gone a little bit awry and can be rebalanced and reset if we can use a tool like yoga.
I squeeze you, you cannot squeeze.
Breathing and emotions are connected. Breathing and mind connected as well. So once you start to work on the child's breathing, you start to work out the areas of the child's brain. You start to work on emotions. The child starts to be more balanced emotionally.
Don't worry about this.
I have learned with my own daughter how to love people the way they are, not the way I wanted that be. She was the first child that I had with special needs. Nowadays I have children with special needs everywhere in the world. Children need to be outdoor, need to spend energy, and then they are labeled like ADHD, and then they do medication for these children. And I have seen lots of children that are labeled like that and start doing yoga, and they calm down, and they start to be more in the present moment. They start to learn and to be more focused. Yoga brings together the child as a whole. What I know is that love is the answer for everything. Love still is the most powerful weapon in the world. Thank God.
That's the missing link in many ways. Because when you leave love out of the equation, and it's very awkward to talk about it, isn't it? You know, you're sitting in a big meeting with a bunch of scientists, and you can talk about the role of love, but then ask those same practitioners who every day deal with folks in their office and ask them how often a crack in the love of an individual has actually been at least linked temporally to their illness. How often were they fired? Did they get divorced? Did they have a fight? Did something bad happen? And then the illness followed soon thereafter. It's pretty common. It's scarily frequent. So we're not going to be able to get rid of that, so we take charge of the situation by using a variety of different paints to cover over the cracks in the wall of life. But the vessel that holds our love has to be rebuilt, and that's a core issue that we don't grapple with very well.
What if I should discover that the poorest of the beggars and the most imprudent of all offenders are all within me, and that I stand in need of the alms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy who must be loved? What then? I think this quote by Carl Jung is a beautiful example of what yoga, what meditation, what psychology can bring to an individual when we're talking about empowerment and self-healing. And that a person has to learn not to run away from the pain point, but love it into wellness. So what we do is, if our mind can assist in hurting the body, in our lifestyle and in our behaviors and with our emotional responses, then can't we look at the other end of the continuum also, that the mind has the capacity to then also heal?
That means the quality of our thoughts are affecting our mind.
That's one of Swami Satchidananda's great contributions, is that he talked about the relationship of the mind and emotions to health. He talked about using more natural approaches to treatment and prevention. The idea that that we can assist the body to heal itself as opposed to cover up a symptom. I would say that characterizes the shift toward alternative medicine and integrative medicine, complementary medicine that's going on right now.
If we hold on to healing as if it's in the hands of only a select few, and not recognize that the individual is a as a partner in that process, then we're missing out on our ability to really truly heal ourselves in clinical settings as well as heal the entire planet. I think it comes from being someone alienated from nature, if you will. It comes from the Western tendency to isolate things and reduce them to their smallest particles. This limitation, however, and some of the problems that can occur is when you look at just an organ, you know, diseased liver, diseased heart, without looking at the entire individual. And then oftentimes drugs are created just to deal with a symptom from a particular organ imbalance, not thinking of the impact it's having on the rest of the body, not trying to use nature to harmonize the body, which is what the body is always trying to do anyway.
If we are simply going to treat only the people for their problems without telling them why you are in this trouble, what did you do, what went wrong, how could you avoid coming to me again, that's very important. If you simply give a medicine, he or she will go back and come tomorrow with the same problem or with something else.
That's what integrative medicine to me is all about. It's integrating the best of traditional and non-traditional approaches and using science to show what works, what doesn't, for whom and under what circumstances. In our studies, we use these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art measures to prove the power of these very ancient, low-tech and low-cost interventions, like what we learned from Swami Satchidananda.
For over 20 years, Dr. Dean Ornish has been making headlines as the first doctor to prove now that heart disease can really be reversed by changing your lifestyle.
Vegan diet, right? Not vegetarian, but vegan, which means what? No meat, no eggs.
What we found is that after a year, the men who followed a vegan diet and who also made other changes in diet and lifestyle, who exercised, who did yoga meditation, and who had a support group, that their PSA levels began to decline.
Initially, I believed that if I had knowledge, then I would have the power to help and make all the differences that needed to be made. And what you realize is knowledge is power, that's for sure, but it's not all the power you'll need to help. And in fact, the solutions to the wellness of individuals lies within them. So if I take you off to the operating room with the expectation on your part that I'll cure you forever of your heart disease, and all I'm really doing is palliating your problem, then a couple of years down the road, when you have recurrent symptoms because you're continuing to smoke or you're still gaining weight or you're not meditating or you're just not getting in touch with life, and sickness just becomes some obstacle to overcome to get back to the blandness of wellness, then we've missed the whole boat.
Back in January of 1993, I was working in the federal government in Washington, D.C. I was behind my desk, feverishly working on a report that was due that evening. And the next thing I knew, I found myself on my back, on the floor, with excruciating chest pain. I had a cardiologist tell me that at the age of 42, I'd had a heart attack. A couple days into the recovery, I had a friend of my wife's visit me, and he brought me a book written by Dr. Dean Ornish, and the book was entitled Reversing Heart Disease. Dr. Ornish began the discussions of his interventions, his solutions to that disease, and the first one involved diet. And it was a fairly radical diet. It was entirely vegetarian, and it not just wasn't vegetarian, it was extremely low fat. Well, then I went on to the next chapter, and that chapter was a little bit strange, to tell you the truth, because it had a bunch of stick figures in it doing these pretzel poses. I was out of the hospital, and 2 weeks later, I visited with my cardiologist, and I asked him if he'd ever heard about this Dr. Dean Ornish and this book about reversing heart disease. And my cardiologist said, well, Dr. Ornish is kind of out there on his own. So instead, I embraced my cardiologist's recommendations. I was supposed to moderate my diet, not eat so much red meat, substitute chicken, substitute fish, rest for 6 weeks, and then go back to my normal life activities, which included working 60 or 70 hours a week in the federal government, looking at every opportunity to go up that next rung on the ladder, and I spent the next several years doing that to some relative success. I had my second heart attack 3 days before my 50th birthday. I'd come home frustrated, angry, I began to self-medicate with alcohol. I had my third heart attack in June of 2002. And then finally in November of 2003, I had my fourth heart attack. In February of 2005, I was diagnosed with my fifth heart attack. By that time, my cardiologist stopped offering suggestions. It was pretty clear where my disease was heading. I left that day and I told myself that there had to be something else that I could do to save my life. I got home later that day, and that evening as I was sitting in a fair amount of despair, I remembered that book from Dean Ornish. And I went through the library and dug it out and dusted it off and started reading it once again. And then read about the stick figures, which I now knew to be yoga. And then read about the concept of opening your heart to love, which I know also now to be yoga. And suddenly, instead of that book being so strange, it made more sense to me than anything that I'd read in my life. So from that day forward, I lived that book. I practiced a complete vegetarian diet. I exercised every day by prescription of Dr. Ornish. I practiced yoga twice a day. And slowly, week after week, month after month, I began to feel better. My energy increased. My outlook on life continued to improve. I was able to increase my time at working out. I was able to increase my asanas. I was able to go back to doing the things that I was doing before in my life. A year prior, when I was going to have that implant in my chest, my ejection fraction, which is the primary test of heart efficiency, was 29. That's about half that of a normal beating heart. The ejection fraction had arisen to almost 50, which is essentially normal for a person of my age. In addition to that, the METS level, which is essentially a test of aerobic capacity, heart capacity. For a normal person with no previous heart disease, a METS of 10 is considered excellent. Mine was 13. And after the shock of that wore off, another emotion came in, and the emotion was, this really is a miracle. What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? And it was at that point that it became crystal clear to me what I needed to do with the rest of my life. And I'm now working at Augusta Medical Center teaching yoga to not only regular yoga students, we're also putting together programs for yoga for cancer patients. It's just another example of Gurudev's love and his hand on my shoulder, directing me in every aspect of my recovery and now my new life.
I don't think that you can truly achieve health, certainly the health that will make you happy and glow in life, without dealing with the spiritual issues. Because you have to have an insight into what it's all about. And we frequently look upon organized religion, and by the way, sometimes organized religion comes in the form of science, to deal with these issues for us. But at the end of every experience of that nature, there's always the why. Why is this happening? Why is this worth it? And what's going to become of me? And we have to have some type of a congruent system for ourselves to cope with that question. And for that reason, I would never try to advise someone to take care of their body without dealing at the same time with the spiritual issues that I know they're facing, because they're human, and all humans face that issue.
Yoga is not another religion. It simply presents the basic principles behind all the religions. So there's no Western teaching, Eastern teaching, only superficial. The basis, there's no East, West, North, South. It's all just one.
Had a lot of visibility as a major religious figure in America. He was a Hindu leader who wasn't just talking to Hindus about Hindu ritual. He was talking about the issues of the world, which included dealing with people of other traditions, because we're now living in a globalized world.
The society in which fundamentalism thrives is a certain level of human development. And until we rise to another level of whole human development, we are stuck in that. On that level, you just do that. You cannot even think otherwise. You think in we and they, and my God and their God. This is part of this level of human consciousness.
A simple idea to, I don't know why we can't recognize it. Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. In my synagogue I add, listen, O Israel, and listen, O humankind. Everybody has to listen. What's the message? There's only one God. And therefore, by definition, there's only one family of all humankind. You're white, I am black. You're Jew, I'm Gentile. You're Christian, you're this. Absolutely stupid. It doesn't fit us. We are all children of that one God, and we are brothers and sisters, and we have to love each other.
In fact, the world statistics say that more people were killed in the name of religion and God than by any other reasons. Could that be the purpose of religions? Who gave us the religious teachings? The prophet, the Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Shankara? No. Religions always have the same aim behind, same goal. And even there is not much difference in presentation, but the problem is in understanding. Then I thought there should be a place to remind that, a permanent place. It is that idea that made me think of lotus. So I said, a shrine in the form of lotus, L-O-T-U-S, stands for Light of Truth Universal Shrine. The first shrine which could accommodate altars for all the various faiths. So it's a physical, concrete symbol to express the goal that we should get united in the name of religion. That's the purpose of religion. Let's not kill each other in the name of God and religion. So it accommodates all the various faiths. So anybody who comes here can see it's my place. And people have all over the world come, visited, and they felt so much at home.
You know, this vision of this lotus temple, I think, is more relevant today than ever, because all of the things that we are so afraid of, you know, terrorism and religious wars and jihads and all of this, they all begin with that misperception that we are separate and only separate from each other. Because once we have the other half of that, which is, yes, we are separate and we are all interconnected, it becomes much harder to demonize people and to do bad things to them.
So maybe the clock's running out a little bit. You know, maybe it's getting a little crazy now. Maybe it's time we really get down to business now, you know, because it could be this book that they've been reading all these years has got an ending, right? Yeah, there's an ending in there. So maybe it's getting a little quick pace because we got to bring our consciousness up fast.
Looking in the world around us today and seeing climate change, seeing the levels of pollution in the world, seeing countries like China and India trying to catch up to America in terms of consumption of world resources and primarily an emulation of the West. The West has a great opportunity right now to share the lessons, the hard lessons we have learned, if we've really learned them, with the rest of the world. The popularity of yoga gives a platform upon which to present these ideas to the rest of the world in a way that they're very eager to hear them.
Yoga gives you the foundation. Then you can build anything you want over it. So it's not an escapism at all. On the other hand, it is a preparation to face the world and to make the world a happy place to live.
I mean, he wasn't selling a bill of goods. He was himself there, welcoming you, and so humorous.
He always taught us that life was for fun. And he showed that by having fun almost all the time.
Life is to have fun. If we want, we can always be happy. It's completely in our hands. If I can have the right attitude, nobody, I mean really nobody, on this earth or anywhere in the planet can make me unhappy. There is a feeling that a priest, a monk should not laugh, should be very serious, always talk about the heaven. I tell them, I say, heaven can wait. You are here on this earth, let us make this a heaven.
He created fun. He put on my robe. And then he also said to me, you know what? He said, in my former life, I was the rabbi, you were the Swami.
Somebody asked a question. Now, Swamiji, if you lived all alone on an island and there was absolutely nothing to eat but meat, what would you do? And he looked at the guy and he said, if there was nothing else to eat, I'd eat you.
Swami Satchidananda, he just died, was a great man. You'd have liked him. Swami Satchidananda said, when you're angry, the last thing you get is information. I said, okay, Swami, I love to call him by their first name. I come home, and my wife's in bed with another guy. There she is, in bed with another guy. What do I do, Swami? I'm going to yell and scream. He says, aha, very brilliant. Yell, scream, and he runs, and she thinks you're a maniac. What if you said, I'm going to make some tea? Why don't the three of us talk about this? Then he was smart. Who owns that moment? You do. Who's going to get information? You will. by not being angry.
Let me tell you,
But who in the world could do this?
That Swami ain't from Texas. We'll be right back.
He was Swami for the people. He attracts people. He has a strong magnet, a love. He was made of love, you know. You close your eyes, you see sort of a God in him.
For me, he is living proof of God in a lot of ways. He was so much more than a physical form. He was so much more. He just had this energy about him, this peace, this joy.
I mean, Sri Gurudev has always said, the highest compliment that you can ever pay me, he said, is to enjoy all the happiness and joy that I experience.
Which is, what are you doing this moment to realize who you are, to know who you are, to know yourself from the inside? Because that's what you get to take with you in the continuing journey. And people would ask him, what would your last words be? He would always say, see you later.
It's very simple. Keep your body as clean as possible, your mind as clear as possible. That's all we need. And do it in any way you can, in your own way. It doesn't matter. That's why I say, peaceful body, peaceful mind. And then you will be useful. You don't have to become a useful person. You will be useful. So if you remember this always, you don't need me anymore, you don't even need to hear me anymore. Good idea. Thank you.